Welcome to the Real Storytellers Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki, and this is episode 103. On this week's episode, we will have a very special guest. Her name is Veronica Kaprosy. She is going to share her daughter Danica's story. Now, Danica was a 17-year-old beautiful teenager who tragically lost her life due to fentanyl poisoning. In 2022, more than 2,000 people died from fentanyl in Texas. That's more than 5 a day. And it is the number one killer of Americans ages 18 through 45. Today, we will hear from a mother who is fighting for change. Let's go. So we have with us Veronica Kaprosy. Yes, Kaprosy. It's not that hard. And today we're going to talk about the fentanyl crisis because I feel like it is something that needs to be talked about more. I don't feel like enough people are paying attention to what's going on. And I feel like it is affecting so many people. So just to give a little background information, a little statistic that I got from Texas Tribune. In 2022, more than 2,000 people died from fentanyl in Texas. That's more than 5 people a day. And it's the number one killer of Americans ages 18 to 45. But clearly it's affecting victims as young as babies.
Yes.
So just a little more background information. I've known Veronica's sister since I was probably about 11 years old when I met her sister. And I remember Danica when she was a little girl. I remember my friend was having a wedding and I stood in it. And I remember Danica being playful. I remember we went to go get our dresses for the wedding. And she was so full of life and she was beautiful. And obviously that was years ago. So she grew up into a teenager, very beautiful. And like I said, she looked like the all-American teenager. She was very smart and she had 2 loving parents, 2-parent household. I mean, she had a life ahead of her. So I'm going to go ahead and let Veronica tell her story, tell Danica's story, and kind of shed some light on this fentanyl crisis. So I'll let you go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Nikki.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Veronica Kaprosy, and my daughter is Danica. It's been a year, 13 months, but it feels like yesterday. Danica was a great little girl. She didn't give us any problems. You know, she loved school and loved being with us. She loved to swim, violin. She loved volleyball. She was just a regular, normal kid. She did well in school. Very loving, very kind, very playful. When I look back at Danica, we struggled with her sleep when she was little, like elementary. So we'd, of course, had to put her to bed earlier, or she would say, "Oh, I want to go to bed this time." And we'd be like, "No, because you don't get up early, you have school." So let's fast forward to her being a teenager. She just really started struggling with sleep. And we took her to the doctor, and we were in the process of trying to figure out, why can't this little girl sleep? What's going on? And she had blood work done. She had food testing done. And so she was allergic to so many foods that we didn't know anything about. And this was like right before COVID happened. And that just kind of set her off to the side, like, what's going on with me? I'm allergic to this. I can't eat chicken. I can't have, cheese, this, that, whatever, because I feel sick. And then we started putting 2 and 2 together, that the chicken and the eggs and the grapes were causing her body pain. And those were like the most high on the list of food allergies. But she was a teenager and she still wanted to eat those foods, even though we would tell her, no, you can't eat those foods. because they make you
I can
sick, they make you
imagine.
feel sick, you
Definitely.
know. Of course, we were on top of that, but, she just wanted to feel normal.
Normal teenager.
So if she had chicken or anything like that, she would make sure that she was home because then she would be able to tolerate her pain here at home and not somewhere else. So she knew how to navigate her foods. Um, she was a sophomore, I believe, when we found out about her food allergies. COVID happened, so it took them out of school, and it was just um, depressing for her because it was like I can't hang out with my friends, I can't play volleyball, I can't do this, and they had to stay home, and friends couldn't come over, and because everybody was just so scared of COVID, and so of course that did a little something to her. And then come junior year, they're now able to go back to school. They still have to wear the mask and stuff like that. And so now, we are still in the process of trying to figure out, what's going on with her. The doctor put her on like some vitamins that they provide there at the doctor's office to, help with mood, help with anxiety, help with, whatever she was going through. But my doctor did not want to put her on any kind of prescribed medication like Xanax or, um,
Or like
Sonatas for sleep,
antidepressants and
yeah.
yeah.
She just felt, she's 17. Because even I said, well, how about a Sonata, because I kind of felt like I used to take them when I was younger because I couldn't sleep either. And they only helped for, a few hours. And my doctor was just absolutely not. We're not putting her on anything. I don't want her to become addicted to anything. So, we did things naturally, the sleepy teas, the chamomile, the passion flower, things like that. Those just weren't strong enough for whatever she was going through. She had a job, and on her 16th birthday, we went to go eat at Garcia's Mexican restaurant in Shirts. And so we've always gone to that restaurant since before she was born. So for 17 years, we went to eat at that restaurant. So a few of the waiters and waitresses that worked there knew of Danica. And so we go eat on her 16th birthday, and she's like, uh, let's see if they hire me if I ask for, put an application. And we're like, okay. So we call the girl over and we're like, hey, are y'all hiring? And she's like, yeah, we're hiring. This is the waitress. And so what age do you hire? Yeah, 16. So we said, well, can we get an application? So Danica filled it out. The waitress gave it to the manager that night while we were still eating. He comes to the table and he's like, can I do an interview with Danica? And we're like, yeah.
Oh,
So he
wow.
takes her to the back and he does an interview with her. And then she comes back and she's like, I got the job.
Oh,
And
wow. So she was excited to work and
oh,
to make her
yeah.
own money
Oh,
and oh,
girl,
wow.
she loved to make her own money. She saved it too. She has bailed us out and has bailed Valerie out too. Um, but yeah, she got her job. The first week, they hired her at $8 an hour. And then the second week, they bumped it up. By the third week, they gave her a very hefty bonus. And so they loved her there. And she was doing great. She was excited because now, going into her first year of working there, she was doing expediting, where you bring the food out. So she was doing that, and she was excited about that. Um, she couldn't wait till she turned 18 so she could do waitressing. And but then in between that, we didn't see any signs of popping pills or any signs of anything. To us, we just still saw her as she's suffering from her insomnia, she's suffering from her food allergies, and it makes her feel bad. It makes her feel sick. And so, we didn't see any signs of drug use. Um, but we think that maybe her last 6 months, I mean, I really don't want to put a date on it because she met this little boy her junior year, and I guess he was popping pills and maybe introduced her to the pills. I don't know. We don't know that story. Um, but she was with him for a year, and I just want to say maybe the last 6 months, maybe 8 months, 6 to 8 months of her life, she was doing pills and self-medicating because what we were doing for her wasn't strong enough, and maybe he introduced her to a Percocet or a Xanax, and she was like, "Whoa, I could sleep. I don't feel the
Yeah.
pain," you know? And so she ended up getting that one pill and not waking up. 3 days before she passed away, um, on Monday, we had a great day with her. She worked that day. I had my granddaughter with me. Um, we picked her up from work. She wanted a TV, so we went to Walmart to buy her a TV because her gaming system was really slow. Or her TV that she had was really slow for her gaming system, so she wanted one that was a little bit faster.
Hmm.
And then she wanted a dresser, so we went to go get her a dresser and um, bought her a new TV. Um, went to go eat. We had dinner with her, and it was great. We had a good day with her. And then Tuesday, she just said, "Mom, I'm not feeling well. I'm gonna call out." And we're like, "Okay," because we don't tell her no. Um, and that Tuesday night, we went back to Walmart and picked up some stuff, and then we came back home. And between that, she asked if she could have some. She was hungry. She wanted some Wendy's. We said okay, and we got her what she asked for. And we came home. I took her trash out, gave her her food. We were in and out of her room. We didn't see anything different,
Anything for
funny, or
for cause for suspicion.
no, nothing. And she was watching a show actually that my husband was watching at one time. It was really funny. It's called Atypical. And Danica was watching that, and so I kind of like stayed in her room for a couple minutes, and I was like, "Oh, Dad was watching this not too long ago, and he thinks it's funny,
Hmm.
whatever." She's like, "Yeah." So, um, I just stood there for a little bit and was walking out, and she asked me to turn the light off and shut the door, and turned back to look at her one last time, not knowing that was going to be my last time. And I shut the light off and shut the door, and that was the last time I saw or spoke with her.
Wow.
Wednesday morning, I get up and go run some errands. I went to go open the door because, she had to be at work by 10. And so I went, knocked on the door, and it was locked. And so I popped it open and I said, "Danica, come on, get up. I'm getting ready to go run some errands. Are you hungry? You want me to bring you a taco or, whatever?" Want something to eat? She didn't answer me. And I said, "Danica, why are you laying like that? What's wrong? Are you okay?" And she still didn't answer me. So I flicked the light on and I went to go touch her to wake her up, and she was just cold
Mm.
and hard, white, purple. I just screamed for my husband, and he came running in, and I just said, "She's gone. Our baby's gone." So we called 911 and uh, wanted us to do CPR on her. And
Hmm.
we were like telling them, "She's gone. Like, how do you want us to do CPR?" And they're like, "Are you refusing to do CPR on her?" And we're like, "No, we're not refusing to do CPR, but
You felt
she's
that she had been
cold."
gone for, yeah.
Yeah, she was gone for several hours already, and we didn't even know it. We did do CPR on her. My husband was doing compressions, and I was blowing air into her mouth. And for one split second, she her eyes popped open and her face turned warm. And I said, oh my gosh. And I looked at my husband. I said,
Wow.
did you see that? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, we're like, come on, Danica, come on, and he's doing compressions and I'm blowing air in her mouth. And by then the EMS, EMTs came in and they told us to leave the room so they could finish. But she had already been gone for several hours.
So about this time when you were going through her things, did did you even did you even have the slightest clue that it could have been from a pill or
No,
anything? No.
I jumped out her purse. I mean, I looked around her room. I came to our medicine cabinet in the kitchen and I looked at everything, and everything was full and nothing had been moved or misplaced, nothing. And so I didn't know what to think. We didn't know what to think. There was no cuts or bruising or
No
nothing,
trauma to her or anything? Oh my
nothing,
god, I
nothing
can't
at
even
all.
imagine.
So we were really stumped. We were like, we didn't know. We had never heard of fentanyl, illicit fentanyl, um, before this. I knew of fentanyl because they use it for cancer patients and, for pain
Mhm.
and stuff like that. But straight fentanyl, never heard of it. And we always, we did talk to Danica about drugs, and we always talk to her, don't be taking anything that, you don't know where it comes from, you don't know who made it, or, what they put in it. People are using rat poison, just whatever to make the drug stretch. And we would have those conversations. And she would always tell me, no, mom, I don't like drugs. I don't do drugs. It's bad for you. That was Wednesday. We still didn't know what was going on. And then on Friday, her boyfriend came over and he showed us a picture of what she had. And she had taken a picture of 2 blue Percocets. And then the other 4 were like bars, yellow bars. I guess those are the Xanax. And we just kind of put that together. We still didn't know it was fentanyl. We just thought, okay, well, maybe she took all those pills and that's what, my baby only weighed 115 pounds, so maybe she took those 2 Percocets and those 4 bars or 5 bars, whatever it was. And she
It took her
overdosed.
life. Mhm.
But then that was in July. In August, we had heard about the little boys in Hayes County that were just passing away, one right after another. It was 1, 2, 3, 5. I think up to 6 in that span between July and the end of August, early September.
Wow.
And I was really mad at the media because I was like, how do these people know it's fentanyl poisoning? We can't even get the medical examiner's office to tell us anything. So I reached out to KSAT 12 for them to help me figure out, why do they get answers and not me? What's going on? But then it didn't even happen that way. It went into an interview about fentanyl poisoning, like us suspecting that it was a, fentanyl poison. And from there on, we just waited and waited 4 months for them to tell us that it was fentanyl poisoning. Now, mind you, Danica thought she was taking a Percocet, and there was nothing in that pill. It was a full fentanyl pill.
Wow. So there was no other drug in there. It was just pure fentanyl.
Pure fentanyl.
Wow.
4
S-
long months of not knowing. But then when we got that report, it just confirmed what we thought. So we knew
Wow.
Danica didn't want to die. She was cleaning her room. She was doing laundry. She had one more load of laundry to do. Her jeans, they're still there. I haven't washed them. I have my days where I debate. I'm like, babe, should I wash her jeans and hang them up and put them away? Or because that's what I would do anyways when she was alive. But he always says, you do what you want to do when you're ready. So I'm like, okay. So her room's still the same as she left it.
Wow, I can't even imagine. You're very strong. And I know it's funny because as you know, my son has autism and life hasn't necessarily been easy. I mean, especially for him, for us, just, a lot of emotions happen when you find that diagnosis. You have a lot of hopes and dreams for your child, and then you
Right,
hear these things, and a lot of stuff comes crashing down on you. And that's not to say that they can't do amazing things, but it's just not the way you planned it.
right.
And I remember when I first found out, people would say, "You're so strong, you're so strong." And I used to hate it because I'm like, I wasn't given a choice. Like this is all I have to be is strong.
Yeah,
So I could only imagine how you must feel. And then I told you that. But I know people have good intentions when they say that. But I know it's like, well, what else am I supposed to do? I can't just crawl and die.
right,
I have to live life. I didn't know anything about, I mean, I think I've heard of fentanyl, like on the news. You hear of things, but it's too far away from you.
yeah,
But then when I hear from my friend Valerie, that she lost her niece and this is what happened, it just hit too close to home. And I don't think you really think too much about things until it hits too close to home or it affects someone you love or someone you care about, or someone you care about it affects someone they love. And when I heard about that, it just, I started paying attention. I started looking it up. I started looking at stories and stories of victims and the families, how it affected them. And I just feel like not enough people are talking about this because I didn't realize how many people were dying from this and how many young people are dying from this. And then I start thinking of my own child, and I'm like, he would not have any awareness to any danger if he had a pill. He would just
right.
put it in his mouth.
Hmm.
He wouldn't think twice. And then when I see all these young people, school age people, dying from this, and you know, like I read, there's no safe dose.
No,
And I think
they
that's the
say,
misconception.
yeah, they say 2 milligrams, right? Um, is the lethal dose. And I get mad. That that really upsets me because to me, it didn't take 2 milligrams for Danica to pass away. You know, it was less than that. And so I don't like for anybody to put a number on it, but they do. And so, you know, I can argue and correct them, but that's, I guess they're just trying to show an example of 2 milligrams, it doesn't matter. 1 milligram, 1 grain of salt, 8.5 milligrams. It doesn't matter. Just one little sprinkle and that's it. You're gone.
And then I
You're
would
gone.
think too, everyone's body's different.
Hmm.
I mean, what certain people can handle, other people may not. So I
Right.
think that has everything to do with it too. But
Hmm.
yeah, there's absolutely no safe dose.
No.
So, um, I read that Governor Greg Abbott signed 4 bills to combat the growing fentanyl crisis, including House Bill 6, which classifies overdoses from synthetic opioids as poisonings, triggering murder charges for those convicted of giving someone a fatal dose of synthetic opioids. So I wanted to ask, were there any charges at all for the person that gave this to Danica?
No. So when the detectives came that day, they went into her room and they took her phones, and she had two phones, but one phone was her phone that she had her own old pictures and videos and stuff like that in
Hmm.
there. Um they took her phones and they took some things that they thought were, I don't know, important, I guess. Um they took an iPad that did not work at all. And we're like, that doesn't work, but they took it anyways. Um And so, they interviewed a few people. They interviewed her boyfriend not once, but twice. They didn't take his phone, which I feel like they should have taken his phone, but they didn't. Um, and that's it, really. He said that, he couldn't get into her Instagram or her Snapchat or anything like that because he needed a warrant. And he needed, proof of this, that, or the other for him. In order to get a warrant from the district attorney, he needed to have something to take to the district attorney. And I felt like telling him, well, then do your job, right? Investigate it.
Hmm.
But
So they weren't able to get a warrant for that?
no, because he felt like the district attorney wasn't going to do anything anyways. This was, the way he said it was, oh, he's a Democratic district attorney, he's not going to do anything. He's just going to slap them on the wrist and let them go. And it upset me because I'm like, well, this is my daughter, right? If it was your daughter or your son, you would want to know who gave your kid the pill or where your kid got this pill from. You would want to know. And so why aren't you investigating it that way? But at the time, it was new to everybody. It was new to law enforcement, all these deaths that were just happening. I don't think they were putting two and two together, or maybe they were, and it's just, like, oh, we got other things to do. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. But when you hear other parents talking about their cases, they say basically the same thing. You know, they will put it to like, oh, well, they committed suicide, or it was an overdose, or, you know, they'll say things like that, and then they'll just close the case, and then they'll move on. They'll move on to the next one.
Wow. So
So
Danica's case is closed.
it's closed. Yes, but um, our Bear County Sheriff Salazar is he's opened the case and he's investigating it. So
Good. Good. I'm glad.
I'm
I'm glad.
very happy about that. We'll just have to wait and see how that comes out. You know, he's not making us any promises, but he is
Gonna try.
gonna try.
Yeah.
And that's more than what the detective gave us here in Selma. I don't feel
I
like he's
find
trying.
this I find this very unfair. And I say that because I was watching the Texas Pictures documentaries about fentanyl poisoning, the stories, and I was hearing story after story, and quite a few of them been the same, like you just said. They just closed the case,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm I don't know. It's just hard to hear that, especially when a lot of these people know where that pill came from.
Going back to Governor Abbott, I kind of feel like, that's what we want, right? We want to get these drug dealers and, put them away. They're not, they're murdering people, and they're doing something like in Danica's case. Danica was 17, she was a minor. Why are you selling pills to a minor?
Exactly.
You're already doing two things illegally. You're selling to a minor, and you're selling,
Yeah.
and so I'm just, I'm thankful that Governor Abbott is taking this fentanyl crisis seriously. Um, he's doing some good things. A lot of people don't like him, but to me, I don't care about that. I care about what he's going to do for me and how he's going to work for me. And
Yes.
especially when it comes to what I'm dealing with. And a lot of people, they don't understand it because they haven't lost a child. They haven't lost. If you're not affected by it, you're just moving on with life. And I was guilty of that. When I reached out to my state rep, um him and his wife came over. I was laying on my couch and I was looking at a picture of Danica and I said, "This is wrong. How? Why? What happened? What's going on here?" And I said, "No, something needs to happen. Something needs to be done. I need to call somebody who's going to listen to me." And I remembered my state rep and I called and him and his wife came over. And instead of it being a 15, 20-minute meeting, it turned into a 3-hour meeting. We had lunch, we prayed, he prayed over us, we cried, he cried. And it really affected him because they, at the time, also had a 17-year-old son. So
Oh,
it can happen to me, it could happen to their kid, right? And
definitely.
so they, he became very passionate about what we needed to do. And so because of him, he has opened doors to a lot of things, and I've met a lot of people and people who are loving and caring and want to help. But there's so many policies and obstacles and this and that and verbiage and that you have to work around because you don't want to offend anyone or this or that. But you know what? I don't care because your kid didn't die, my kid did. So we're going to do what we need to do, right?
Definitely.
Definitely. He has been great. He has been a
Yeah.
big support.
So I see that it says other measures signed by Abbott will establish Fentanyl Poisoning Awareness Month in October and also require public schools to provide students with staff to assist with fentanyl abuse prevention, drug poisoning awareness. Then it says the fourth law will allow the distribution of Narcan
Mhm.
and in Texas colleges and universities. And then the other day, I noticed I was on the Texas Education Agency website, TEA, and they actually had information about that too. And I see that now it's going to be implemented in schools, which is
Mhm.
good. But I know I also read that people are worried it's going to turn into some kind of like DARE program. But I
I
mean,
mean, well, why not?
whatever
Right?
education we can get in the schools
Yeah.
about this is definitely needed. I mean, I was a substitute teacher at a middle school and there there was, kids, getting in trouble for having pills or even marijuana, and we all know that fentanyl could be laced in marijuana now too.
Yep.
So it's it's a lot, but I'm glad that he is making these steps. Whether you like him or not, he's
Mhm.
doing some good here.
Mhm.
And I think that's really important. So, do you think that the Gen Z generation, do you think they have more mental health issues um, now than like, well, obviously than we did? And do you think that that's why the number of deaths have increased due to like substance use because of the mental health? Like, in your opinion?
All of that is social media.
I
All of that is
agree.
social media because kids are portraying themselves to be something that behind closed doors are actually not. So then they're making the next kid think, "Oh, wow, and how come they have that or how come they can do that or how come this or how come that and how come I can't?" And I think all of that, my biggest regret is letting Danica have a cell phone with internet access to it is my biggest regret. When I look back at it, um, at first you think, "Oh, cute, Snapchat," right? You get to do filters and this and that. You don't think anything wrong with it. But then really behind closed doors, you really don't know what your kid is doing with messages and who's texting or who's, doing this or that or whatever. And, you want to trust your children. Um, but sometimes it's not your children, it's other people. So,
You're right. Yeah, definitely. I think about that a lot too because, like, my son, for instance, he's very innocent minded
mhm,
and he thinks that the world's a safe place because that's what we created for him. That's the environment I created for him, a
mhm,
safe place. and he doesn't understand that this world is dark and there's a lot of evil things going on, and there's, not everyone has pure intentions.
Right.
And I think about this a lot because sometimes I think, am I sheltering him so much that he's going to be too naive?
Mm-hmm.
Or, it's hard because it's like you have to have this real balance nowadays with parenting because of
Mm-hmm.
social media and everything. And it's like you can monitor your kid all day and night, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that they're not going to find themselves in something that, you know, mom and dad can't bail them out of.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I feel like this generation, I think social media has done a lot of harm
Mm-hmm.
to the mental health of kids, girls wanting to look a certain way because that's what they
Yeah.
see. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's just so much easier to be depressed nowadays. And
Yeah.
then when I was growing up, it wasn't like that. I mean,
Mm-mm.
social media didn't come out till I was already, I mean, it was MySpace, but I was already graduated, I
Yeah.
think, when MySpace came out.
2009,
So,
you think it was
yeah,
when?
I think I was like the last generation to, like, not grow up with social media. And I feel like the pressure that some of these kids have. And then, like I said, I was substituting in elementary and in middle school. And these kids already have cell phones in elementary. And they talking about TikTok and I'm like, wow. And, I'm not judging anyone's parenting by all means. Everyone knows their kids and, everyone parents differently. But I feel like social media is really affecting, and it's so much easier to have access to drugs, to, whatever the world has to offer. It's
Well,
just so
yeah,
much easier.
they're door dashing, you order online and they'll meet you at the park or at the corner, or they'll come to your driveway and drop it off. And, it's
It's crazy.
crazy. I also kind of feel the government plays a big role in how we want to um, parent or discipline our children.
Oh,
You know,
definitely.
we can't even
Definitely.
yell at them because, oh, let me give them a 1-800 line to call CPS because my mom yelled at me, took my phone
Yeah.
away, or she spanked me on the butt, or she threw a shoe at me, or whatever the case is.
This
Um,
is definitely a more sensitive generation.
Definitely,
Definitely.
you can't say anything. You have to watch what you say to your kids, and it's like this is not how I grew up.
No,
You know, I
definitely
remember,
not.
I remember disrespecting my uncle, and he, kid you not, he put me in the corner and he threw some rice on the floor, and I had to kneel
Oh.
down on that rice because I was not going to disrespect him. And I didn't after that. you know,
You learned.
I learned.
Yeah.
But this generation, and maybe even part of the generation before that, it's too too sensitive,
Yeah.
too sensitive.
So I noticed you had went to an event called The Ocean Speaks, and it was a fentanyl awareness speech rally.
Mhm.
And it looked very beautiful out there. And you had went live on social media, and on the beach was all the pictures of all the victims just in a long line.
Mhm.
And there were so many. And what broke my heart even more is there were babies.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, how in the world does that happen? I mean, is there any way you could shed some light on that?
So a couple of those babies, they died because either the parent um, of the child, their friends had fentanyl in their home. Um, I think two of those children, if I'm not mistaken, um, went to go to their father's house.
Mm,
So there's that. that separation of mother and father. Kid lives with the mom, the child goes to visit the dad, and then who knows what their living situation is, but the roommates had fentanyl, and so that's how they passed away. It seems like that's how all those little babies are passing away, is their parent is either on drugs or they know someone that's on drugs that they're living with, and the baby gets a hold of it, and that's how they're passing away.
Wow. That is so sad.
Mhm.
And I'm talking baby, like 6 months old,
Once.
maybe even smaller.
Mhm.
Maybe, oh my God,
Yeah,
really
there was
sad.
one on the news the other day where the 17-year-old girl wanted to put her baby to sleep, and she put fentanyl in the bottle to put her child to sleep. Well, her child went to sleep forever. And
Oh my
then
God, that's so heartbreaking.
supposedly she says, "Oh, I thought it was cocaine." Okay, well, why are you putting cocaine in your child's bottle? So yeah, it's out there, and people don't understand. I didn't even understand anything about fentanyl. I saw a TikTok one day, and this lady was talking about Narcan, and she was talking about how fentanyl, um, how it affects the brain, how it starts to slow the process of your breathing and whatever. And when I saw that TikTok, I lost it. I lost it because it made me think about Danica, and when she took that pill, did she know? What did she feel? Did she try to scream for me? Did she try to get my attention and I didn't hear her? Um, did she just close her eyes and fall asleep peacefully? And she didn't wake up? So when I saw that TikTok, it it educated me even more on fentanyl. I was like, wow, I did not know. I did not know that it affects those receptors, and I did not know that it slows the breathing down, and I did not know that. And I had to call my doctor, and I was like, "You need to give me something because I am not well right now." I mean, I was just and
I can only imagine, and I can only imagine to think you're thinking of the last moments. You're thinking, was she hurting? Was she not? Was she in pain? Was she peaceful? I could
Mhm.
only imagine.
Yeah.
And
No, that was hard. It was really hard.
it's heartbreaking.
So I don't know how a mother, well, she's 17, she's young, but still, I don't know how she would want to put something in her child's bottle and you know,
Think the baby's just going to be okay.
yeah.
It's insane. I actually saw another story on YouTube. Um, I want to say this happened last year or the year before, but it was a story about it was a teacher, a special needs teacher, giving the kids fentanyl. I
Oh,
was
wait,
like, what?
what?
Yes, I'll send you this story. I saw it. It was a school. She did it at school, and she gave the kids fentanyl. And then they ended up finding out, I guess they raided her home and she had fentanyl and she had like weapons, like guns, and they
Wow.
were all like, what? And oh my God. And then of course, naturally, I think about my son and I'm like, oh my God, I would go crazy
Mhm.
if a teacher did that. But it's just this world we live in is definitely not the same world that when we grew up. It's
Yeah.
different. So different. How can we get involved or spread awareness? What can people do?
Well, right now we are having a fentanyl awareness walk here in Bear County, our first annual fentanyl awareness walk in October. My state rep and I worked on a bill making October Fentanyl Awareness Month in the state of Texas. And that's my way right there of trying to get our community to come together and learn, educate on Narcan, educate on fentanyl, what it's in, what it's not in. It's not an overdose. If you pass away from a drug and fentanyl is in it, it's a poisoning and not an overdose. So a lot of people do not know the difference between overdose and poisonings. And overdoses is when you take too much of something. So if you take too much coke or meth or heroin and you pass away of that, and they test your blood and it's just that, then that's an overdose, right? You took too much of
Hmm.
that. But if you passed away from heroin, coke, or meth and it had fentanyl in it, you actually passed away from the fentanyl, not the other drug.
You're
Uh,
poisoned.
you were poisoned, yes. And so it really irks me when people say overdose, because it's not an overdose. You're being poisoned and you're being murdered. And that's what we're trying to teach. But we get a lot of, I don't want to say kickback, but when I do news interviews with these local TV stations, I always, they'll ask me, is there anything you want us to know and say? And I'm like, yes. Please do not call it an overdose. Call it what it is. It's a poisoning. And nope, they'll go back in there and they'll write up their thing and you'll see overdose in it and they'll still say overdose. And I'm like, why do you ask me that question? And then I tell you, and then you still go back and do the opposite of what I
Oh
what
no.
I
Yeah,
tell you.
definitely.
And
Yeah,
so
because there is a difference. It's not
there
like
is a difference.
these people, well, not all of them, but it's not like they have this awareness that they know fentanyl's in the drug.
Right.
I mean, and then they're just gonna take a bunch of it. I mean,
But the people who are dying now these days, they're not dying of overdoses. They're dying of poisonings. And so it's trying to get the government and these upper people to, call it what it is. It's like pulling teeth. But back to our fentanyl awareness walk, it's going to be October 14th at 4 p.m. at Brooks City Base, and we're hoping that we get a good turnout. We want people to go to this walk who haven't been affected by fentanyl poisoning, so they can know the dangers, right? You need to know the dangers of the drug and what it causes and what it can do, and it can definitely kill your loved one, and you're not going to get them back. There are some children that have been able to, be like resuscitated, and they're in the hospital right now and they're in comas. Um, they're alive, but they're not living life. Their quality of life is in a hospital bed, right? And so, and I just learned this too the other day. One of my friends was telling me that you can do, you can give Narcan to someone who has been poisoned. And if that doesn't work, you need to keep their brain alive with oxygen. So always, always, always keep doing CPR, keep blowing air into their lungs because they need that oxygen going to the brain, because once your brain is gone, then you're gone. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I did not know. Oh, okay, just give them oxygen. Yeah, Narcan is fine, but yeah, you got to still give them oxygen.
hmm.
So people need
So,
to.
I'm wondering, um, like at schools, they say that they're bringing this to colleges, universities. I wonder if they're going to give, I guess, adequate training to these, nurses and, the medical professionals that are there. Um, I really hope that this gets pushed. I remember watching, I guess, the last interview you did. I don't know if it was for KSAT. I don't remember the recent one.
Mhm.
And on there, one of the stories that was attached to your segment was, I guess, there was a friend of somebody's that bought marijuana off the street,
Mhm.
and it was laced with fentanyl, and it killed him.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I was thinking, I was like, oh my God. Because I mean, I know some recreational smokers out there
Yeah.
that they smoke and, they don't see any harm in it. And
Mhm.
then you hear something like this. So I wanted to ask, what advice would you give to parents with school age children, or even those that smoke all the time? They smoke or take pills recreationally, they buy it off the street. What advice would you give them?
Nothing is safe anymore. Nothing at all. You have to know. Don't be lazy. Be involved with your children. And, like for us, it was like, oh, she's 17. We're going to give her a little bit of rope here, there, but you can't. You can't. You can't do that. You have to know. Even if they get mad at you, so what? Let them get mad at you. They'll get over it. But check their room, know their friends, know their boyfriends, know their girlfriends, know who they're talking to, know the fam. I mean, now in these days, you have to know. You just can't let your kid just go freely anywhere anymore. My advice is just to be vigilant. Like you have to be involved, because
I
if you're not
agree.
involved, someone else is going to be involved, and you know, it's not going to be right. But
Definitely. And I think we all have this mentality, um, oh, that happens to other people, but it's never going to happen to me.
right,
You know,
not my kid.
like we
Yeah,
always have that mentality, like, oh, it
that's
happens to
another
their
thing I
kids, not
say.
mine.
Yeah, that's another thing I do say. Don't think that it won't or can't happen to you. Think like it can. Think like it can happen to you. Um, don't let anything, slide. Think like it can happen to you. Don't ever say no, not my child, because I mean, yeah, think I was one of those parents as well. Oh no, not my child, because she tells me, oh no, I don't like drugs. I don't like to have friends who do drugs, or this, that, or whatever. But then,
Mm.
you know, here she is, the last, year of her life, spending it with this boy, and they're doing drugs and taking pills, because I think that's all they were doing was taking pills. I think he smoked weed, and they took pills together. But
So, do you think that this experience has changed his view on that?
his view,
Hmm.
I have no idea. He does not talk to us. So I hope that it has changed his
Yeah.
view on it, because he lost his girlfriend. Somebody murdered his girlfriend. And, I don't know how he's living, if he's living with guilt or what, but I don't know. I do know that I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people who smoke pot, and just like that segment, where he was smoking medical marijuana, and he ran out and he couldn't get any, and so he went off the street.
Yes, that was it. Yes,
Um,
he ran out of, yeah.
yeah, he ran out and he ordered some off the street, and it was laced with weed. And the thing I cannot stand, laced with fentanyl. Um, I can't stand to hear, oh well, I know my drug dealer,
Yeah.
and I know where my drug dealer gets it. I'm like, yeah, you might, but what if he runs out and he gets it from somewhere else other than the other place that he gets it from? You know what I mean? It's like,
Hmm.
you just don't know. Like, how
There's
do
a
you put
chain
that
here.
trust? Yes, there is a chain. How do you put that trust into your quote drug dealer or plug or whatever you want to call it? Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah,
that that
exactly.
that gets on my nerves when I hear that. Oh no, well, my drug dealer's safe. I'm like, what? Oh well, the person I get my stuff from, they're good, they're safe. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay.
Or I know when my weed looks messed with, or yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah, definitely. I can't even
Yeah.
imagine. So I know why you decided to get in this fight, but I have to ask, like, what keeps you going to keep fighting and to, you know, um, I know initially, of course, you're advocating, but I know there's got to be some level of strength that is pushing you through. Where do you get that from?
God, because I say this all the time. Um, if it weren't for God, I wouldn't be here right now. But I want to see my daughter in heaven. And so the only way for me to see her in heaven is for me to live life and wait for God to call me on his time, not on
In
mine.
his timing. Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Amen.
I was angry at God, of course. It's like, why? Why 17 years, Yes, 17 great years with her. Um, but, my husband always had to remind me of my faith. He's like, you got to remember your faith. You got to remember what you say. And, I always say, God ordains our footsteps and he knows when it's our time. And so those are her footsteps, 17 years. Does it hurt? Ooh, it hurts
Of
like
course.
hell. We miss her. We cry for her every day. We we wish she was here. We want to hold her. We want to kiss her. We want to hear her laugh. And, you know, um, we can't because she's gone. And so every day I wake up and every day I have to thank God for waking me up. And I'm angry. I'm angry because I didn't know about illicit fentanyl. I'm angry because there's no visibility in Bexar County. I'm angry because the government's not doing anything about it. I'm angry because it's like, why do we have to be fighting with the government to get them to treat this like a COVID like response? It's like, why do we have to pull money out of our pockets for billboards and flyers and ads and you know whatever we're doing to spread awareness? So why does it have to be a fight with the government? Why can't they just do it? Treat
Treat
it like
this as a
a COVID.
health emergency.
Yes.
Yes.
Treat it like a COVID like response, like they did with COVID. You got to take your vaccines. You got to wear your mask. You got to 6 feet under. We had to stay in our house for 2 years. We couldn't work. We had to take, all these things. Why aren't they treating it like that? It is an epidemic. It's a weapon of mass destruction. It's killing our generation of children. And that, I think that right there, that anger makes me fight even more every day because my daughter would be here had I known about illicit fentanyl.
Amen.
Mhm.
And I hope that Danica's story is makes people more aware about this. And I hope eventually, this could be even more talked about within, not just schools, but adults too. There was a lot of stories with young adults had their, life ahead of them still too. And it does not discriminate at all.
No, it
It
doesn't.
just, it doesn't.
You know, I truly want parents who have not lost their child to see our stories, not just Danica's story, but Kyle's story and Cody's story and, Brooks and all these other stories, Ryan, one of the um, kids that passed away of fentanyl poisoning, he walked over to Progresso, went to the pharmacy there in Mexico in Progresso and bought a jar of Percocets, I think it was. And though that jar of Percocets, those pills were laced with fentanyl.
Wow.
And he and the mom has that jar. I think she already turned it into the DEA, but you know, um, He took one pill out of that jar. And I want parents to, I want them to understand that, hey, this can happen to you. You don't want to be on a podcast. You don't want to be on Case at 12. You don't want to be the governors trying to fight for this, that, or whatever. You don't want to be that parent who has lost a child to fentanyl poisoning because you're not listening and you got those horse blinders over your eyes because you're just moving on with life and thinking, oh, no, it's not going to happen to me, nope, not my kid.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. Well, this is probably going to be one of the hardest episodes I've done because it's heart-wrenching. I mean, like I said, this hit too close to home even for me. And I want to tell you, I really, really appreciate you taking the time to talk about this because I know this can't be easy to unpack every time you have an interview or somebody wants to hear Danica's story. I know that's hard to go back to that place, of the hardest day of your life. So I can only imagine. That's why I really thank you for taking this time and explaining Danica's story and um, spreading awareness. But I know this isn't easy, so I want you to know, like, I don't take that lightly. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, no problem. I mean, anywhere, anything, sometimes I do get tired and I'll hand it off to someone else. My friend Christina, she lost her son Kyle. He was 28 years old and he was an EMT, and he died of one pill. And so sometimes, I'll say, you want this interview or you want this or want that or whatever. We don't want it,
Of
but
course not.
we'll share the story. We're willing to
If
share the
it's going to
story
help.
if
Yeah.
it's going to help save one life or it's going to help somebody. This girl reached out to me that I hadn't talked to in years, and her son and Danica used to be in pre-K together. And she reached out to me and she's like, wow, I had no idea, but I saw your segment on Case at 12 on Sunday. And I was like, okay, so I know that's reaching people, you know,
It
when
is.
they
It is.
when they reach out to me. I know that it's reaching some people. Um, how they'll
Yeah, and
react
it's
to it when
definitely
they grow
reached
older.
me. She's saving lives and she's bringing more awareness to this horrible thing. Um, and like I said, I was guilty of it, or I did look the other way until it hit close to home. But Danica's story shed light on this horrible poison that now I'm more vigilant, even with my son or people I love. But I won't keep you anymore. I know we've been on for quite a while already,
That's
but I
okay.
really thank you. And for those of you um, who are interested in the walk, is there a Facebook page or social media page for the
Mhm.
walk?
Right. It's on Facebook. It's called Souls Walking with the number 4 Souls. It's on Facebook, it's on Instagram, and
Okay,
yeah.
great. And yeah, like I said, parents, be more vigilant. This is, coming from a mother who's fighting for change. So we thank you for listening.
Thank you.